solar eclipse on April 8th is becoming a major event. The National Guard is being deployed, and the people are being advised to have 2 weeks of food and to fill their fuel tanks. This could all be explained due to the fact that tens of thousands of visitors are expected along the path of totality. But many people believe that they could be preparing for possible earthquakes due to the Devil Comet aligning with the April 8th eclipse, and due to the fact that in 1811, a comet also appeared in the skies during a solar eclipse on the same path and was followed by the biggest earthquakes in American history. Known as the New Madrid earthquakes, around 10,000 earthquakes occurred in just 3 months' time, the biggest being measured at 8.8 magnitude. They were the most devastating series of earthquakes in recorded history. But it was a different comet, and while some claim that a solar eclipse can trigger earthquakes, this scenario seems unlikely. This eclipse season is, however, a very rare event. The recent eclipses in August of 2017 and October of 2023, along with the upcoming one on April 8th, forms an Aleph and a Tav over the United States. The Aleph and Tav are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. These eclipses mark the end of the Great Year, a 26,000-year period that starts anew with the dawning of Aquarius and a new golden age. Manly P. Hall wrote that high-level Masons designed America for a peculiar and particular purpose, a secret destiny to bring about a new Atlantis, or a new world order, wherein a king descended of a divine race will rule over all. In rituals, this king is symbolized as Apollo, Horus, or Nimrod, the father of Freemasonry, and is thought to be a descendant of the biblical Nephilim, or the Sumerian Anunnaki. According to Thomas Horn, this will happen in 2025, which corresponds to several documents published by intelligence agencies, such as Global Governance 2025, Global Trends 2025, and the 2025 Deagle Forecast on World Population. NASA is notorious for performing Masonic rituals based on the Egyptian mystery schools, Apollo being the same character as Horus, Sirius representing Isis, and Atlantis being the new golden age they hope to restore. And during the eclipse on April 8th, NASA will fire 3 rockets named after Apep, the Egyptian serpent god, whose goal was to devour Ra, the sun. And when the sun reemerges after 3 minutes of darkness, it will be likened to the rebirth of Horus, their new king of the Golden Age. CERN, known for practicing occult rituals at a statue of Shiva, the Hindu god who symbolizes death, destruction, and the end of an age, will be firing up their Large Hadron Collider to full power during the solar eclipse. And Israel, who is in the midst of committing genocide, is preparing to sacrifice a red heifer, a ritual sacrifice to prepare them for taking back the Temple Mount.
Red heifers, to be precise. Some Jews and Christians believe they're the key to rebuilding the historic Jewish temple in Jerusalem and to beckoning the Messiah. To understand, you have to go back nearly 2,000 years when the ancient Romans destroyed the last temple in the city. To rebuild it, these believers point to the Bible's book of Numbers. It commands the Israelites to sacrifice a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Only then can the temple rise again. Those sacred cows were showcased in Washington at a recent prayer gathering. Many evangelicals believe these red heifers will usher Christ's second coming.
And we need the Messiah to come, right? So for me, the red heifer, it's red for the blood of Jesus Christ.
A massive altar already awaits, where the heifers are to be burned.
According to some believers, the ceremony needs to be performed right here on the Mount of Olives, looking directly into where the temple once stood. But something else now stands in its place.
Once they forcibly take the Temple Mount away from billions of Muslims worldwide, It will predictably thrust the world into the peak of chaos that these secret societies have been designing for centuries. And their plan is to bring order out of this chaos, with their divine king to rule over the world. But these are just rituals, and fear is an illusion. We can always choose love. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
April 8th, we found some more definitely unsettling information, but we've also learned that the timelines are going to be pretty much more aligned in the way that we're seeing this now. So what we want to do here is first, we looked into Doug and Stacy off grid just yesterday, and we've seen that they've gotten information in about the biological scenario. Now remember, I was the one who got the insider to contact me because I've been in contact with the sheriff that I know for over 6 months publicly, but behind scenes even more than that. The story though that I want you to see here is the letter that he received about what's coming on the solar eclipse. And I've actually looked deeper into this information to try to see who would be the ones positioning this type of scenario that he's going to mention here. And I've found some more information on that. And then I've looked back into the insider information from the sheriff. And we're going to put timelines up for all this information. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all of you and all the new people here and everybody who's been a core audience. Let's check this video out.
All right. So listen, guys, I just want you guys to be totally aware. Like, I don't know if anything's actually going to happen, right? But they are sure putting out a lot of signals out there. Now, listen, this is a warning from a secret intelligence leak planned April 8th solar eclipse biological attack. I don't know if any of this stuff is true. I'm just sharing with you what somebody sent to me. You guys, please make your plans accordingly. They are planning a biological attack on April 8th, just before the total eclipse. This is how it's going to go down. Planes will be delivering their payload in 3 intervals. First will be 2 hours before totality, a 1 hour before totality, and a final one 30 minutes before totality. The planes will be deploying a dry powder bacterial weapon. I don't know if any of this stuff is true. Again, I'm just reading this, what's been sent to me. I don't know if any of this stuff is true, okay? But please, err on the side of caution. It will not be visible. You won't be able to see it from the planes in the sky. It's meant to infect those through aerosol delivery. The first 2 planes will be set at the standard altitude. The final plane will be set at approximately 10 to 15,000 feet. The path of the flight will begin in the northeast, and it will travel down the central path of totality heading west, southwest, keeping in place the totality of the eclipse. They're going to take this in the advantage in the event because they know there will be guaranteed targets that will be infected and thus the vectors to spread the contagion. Symptoms will be appearing 7 to 10 days after infection, 30 days after infection. The media will notice 60 days after infection, panic an all-time high, 90 days after infection, newly agreed upon UN WHO pandemic.
All right, I want to make you aware of why this is so important for them to do this during the solar eclipse. I also want to make you aware of who is actually using the release dispersals. But the first thing I did when I heard this video is I contacted my source, the sheriff, who I got the original first video out that a lot of people pushed out, and I appreciate that. But I didn't appreciate how Anonymous pushed my video out and he just took the name JWTV out. Give credit where credit is due. But moving forward, I contacted my source and I asked him, I said, look, I've heard that 2 hours before totality of the solar eclipse, we're going to have planes dispersing bacterial weapons. I've heard an hour and I've heard 30 minutes. I'm going to read what he said to me in my text message. He said, recently he had to go dark. He cannot say anything more on this subject. And remember, he was actually at this meeting here at Homeland Security. So yes, it is credible. Yes, they did talk about an insider intel on a possible biological attack during the solar eclipse and the election. So we're going to move into the scenario at hand here. who is actually spraying stuff. And then I looked into who deals with the chemical and biological shipments and movements. And what I came into was that this ship was one of the Hercules ones. This is what they call it. And what I found was that the Air Force Reserve C-130J-30 Super Hercules prepared to take over aerial spray ops 4 hours ago. Now, they already did beta testing. They did beta tests in Mississippi. They did beta tests in Ohio, where they say they were spraying water. But who knows how far it goes? And you ask the question, okay, so why the Super Hercules, and are they actually releasing this? Is it actually being dispersed? Well, we're going to get to all of that here. We're going to get to it, and we're going to tell you that this is the first line of the scenario that I want you to understand. The Hercules, the Super Hercules, the reason why they would pull that out is because if you go back to ancient Greek mythology, Hercules, actually his birthday or something like that, something around the solar eclipse, as you look on screen here, it says the most famous myth associated with solar eclipses involve the god of Apollo and his son, the hero Hercules. According to one version of the myth, Hercules' birth was associated with the solar eclipse, symbolizing the temporary darkening of the sun. So that's why the military would need to use a Hercules plane. Let's move further into this operation here that they're talking about. C-130J-30 is what we're talking about here. They're taking over the spray ops, and we're talking biological. So let's move on into it. It says, based on Youngstown Air Reserve Station, Ohio is pretty unique. Department of Defense, the only way with aerial spray capability and dedicated aerial spray maintenance flight. And the Air Force created special air spray flight to reduce troop loss due to vector-borne diseases. So they've equipped these fleets to supposedly fight against biological scenarios. Check it out. Spraying for disease-carrying pests. DoD installations, anti-foliage operation, and bombing ranges to decrease inadvertent brush fires and to expose unexploded ordnances after bombings. The U.S. Air Force programs also maintain a standby readiness capability using oil dispersing agents in neutralizing open water oil spills and vector control over metropolitan areas after natural disasters. The aircraft are also used for mosquito control and aerial spray missions to assist civil authorities to fighting pests and insects. Could people be pests and insects to them? That's the question you gotta ask. Testing has been recently conducted over Station Ohio. Told you about that. That's already confirmed. And we go further here. It says on March 21st, 2024, the first time in history, DoD aerial spray 910AW unique electronic modular aerial spray was installed into, so electronic modular aerial spray system. It was installed from Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. Test was passed on March 25th, 2024 with successful spray application at Youngstown ARS. So again, it says a spray modified troop doors to accommodate the spray booms. Check it out though. Like if we look this up, if we look up C-130J, and what does that look like? That looks like this right here. It's not the C-130, because if you look up the C-130, you're gonna just not even get the same one. But when you look it up, actually, it doesn't show it on flight radar. It shows just the original C-130, not the C-130J-30. And this is all you're gonna see. You're gonna just see a couple of these planes. So the question is though, he said that 2 hours before totality. So let's look into that. Let's look into that right now. It says the eclipse 11:20 a.m. local time. So that would mean that would be 9:25 a.m. when the first spraying operation is supposed to start. If the intel that Doug and Stacy got is correct or accurate. Now going into this deeper here, where we talk about the scenarios at hand, since we're talking about UN, WHO enacting a pandemic. So here's a storyline. April 29th to May 10th, they've already finalized the agreement. Joe Biden has already sold us out with the other puppets and everybody else. So this solar eclipse basically is prominent for them to start the next wave of this pandemic, because they get to say, you know what, it's all fake, it's not real. And you're saying, like, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm talking about how the experts get to say solar eclipse sickness doesn't exist. And if you see what I'm saying, you look on screen right now, you can see in the media and the articles how they're saying this is just delusion. It's people with videos from 2019 talking about how they couldn't even get out of the bed and they couldn't even eat. They haven't ate for like a couple of days after looking at the solar eclipse. And here they are saying experts think people may potentially experience symptoms stemming from excitement and anxiety, but the eclipse itself has no bearing on human health. And when you say that, you understand how dangerous that is, right? You understand how that opens the gates for them to say, you know what, it's just a bunch of people just talking. The expert has proven that there is no such thing as sickness during the eclipse. And so 90 days after is the timeline for when I was telling y'all about how he was saying, the sheriff that gave me intel, he said, after that, they want to lock people into their homes. They want to map out the population. I'm looking at my notes that I wrote down. They're going to map out the population. They're going to get religious people on board with getting their family members and everybody else to vax. And their main targets was Ebola, COVID, measles, brain wasting disease. And they didn't want any communications between any of us to be happening. We talked about that. And I told you, he said something that was even like a lot of people didn't agree with. They thought it was crazy. But during the next pandemic, somehow he was saying they were talking about dome technology that they would want to implement over populations, which sounds sci-fi crazy. But as crazy as this guy, like I said, predictive programming on The Simpsons showed them doing this as well. And then he talked about he said the biological attack, he said a day after it, people will be acting odd or animalistic. He also said people were going to be having, inside his Homeland Security meeting, they talked about how people would potentially be having seizures and stuff like that. But you got to understand that the vectors that will be released is a part of the process to start the next wave of this pandemic phase. This is pretty much what they were talking about inside this meeting. And, you know, the targets after, like the background targets, like we said, the background targets is anti-vaccine, anti-government prepper, Trump supporters. And so when they, like I said, when they initiate all this is a scaled out process that we're looking at here. So people thinking like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. Check it out. There's a timeline for all this to start to break down. And we're basically giving you that timeline. So we just told you April 29th to May 10th. So you expect 7 days from this event that everybody here starts like basically document how people feel, what's going on, what's happening. We're going to know everything here on JWTV because every single last one of you will get the information out. You always come to the comments, you relate whatever is going on. That's how we know every single thing. And the more we do that, the more we're getting closer to actually unveiling and unraveling a scenario at hand. So get your health ready. And we talk about the spiritual aspects of it and everything else. Get your health ready, get your mind and heart in the right place, because this is basically a scenario that's going to take us to the next wave. The next wave. And in this next lockdown, they're not playing. They don't want communication systems. Basically, it's going to be locked down. There's going to be emergency protocols in place because they can't allow us to move forward and continue to beat their system because their system is basically crumbling. So they now have to initiate full spiritual demoralizing actions so that they think they can bring us down individually and then they can conquer us. And then they turn on a supercomputer with the human brain this month that's connected to the sixth sense grid because it's neuromorphic, because now it has human biological fluids going through it. And so it's connected into the field of energy, and they're like now going to be using that like some sci-fi Looney Tunes. Somebody says move at all. Somebody says all sheriffs were told they must have a tank and robotic dog at each department. I didn't hear that one, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did say that. Somebody said had a vision 2 moons just last night, one full, the other one next. I think CERN is going to open up a portal. 100% is going to be a portal opened up. Somebody says hence the zombie effect. So I forgot to turn off the notifications again. But anyway, like the whole scenario at hand here, just share the video out, get the information out so we can know more and have more intel on the information coming at hand. The donation link will be below. We will keep you updated on every informational aspect of piece of information that we get. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe.